Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my solo trip to Paris. I'm just going to give a quick rundown of what I'm going to talk about before we dive into it. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. But I'll be talking about the origin story behind this trip. I'll be talking through all the logistics, booking stuff, flights, hotels, and then excursions, my actual day-to-day itinerary, and then of course going into my thoughts and my takeaways from this trip for you all. We'll see how long I talk because I might make this a two-parter. I feel like I might be able to talk for an hour straight, honestly. I think I'd always wanted to do a solo trip. Probably the inspiration struck me like 2 years ago. I had done a couple of trips at that point with other people, with friends, with family, and I thought, why not go into the solo of it all? That could be kind of fun. But of course, you know, that's something that I just had in the back of my mind. I never really thought it could be real, kind of thing. Like, what a cool thing to say, but then to actually do it is another thing, like many things in life. More recently, I went on a family vacation to visit some family in the Canary Islands during the holidays. And it was a lot of fun, obviously such a beautiful place to be in, but traveling with family is not the easiest thing. I don't know if anyone knew that. I thought I knew that, and it's not even out of like malice, it's just like being with family for 2 weeks during the holidays in another place is a lot, but I'm sure people can relate to that. The first time I was alone, in the 2 weeks that I was there with my family, I just went on like a quick 10-minute sunset walk by the water. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I think I need to do this more often. I think the key is to be alone. And that was just like the surefire moment where I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure something out this year. This was like maybe a week before the new year, or honestly, maybe it was like January 3rd. And I had told myself, I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna go by ourselves, me and me, to somewhere new that I had never been before. So I had started with just like understanding what this actually meant, you know, like solo trip, does that mean like I'm going by myself to visit someone, like a friend, obviously, or visit family, but like not completely be with them the whole time? Or is it truly going to be like solo dolo, like I'm the one who's doing everything? I had this inclination to pick a European destination only because I am 100% European. And so it's a little bit closer to home, but obviously Europe is diverse in the sense that there are so many different cultures and places and languages to visit and experience. So I thought, okay, this could be something different, maybe not too different, kind of close to home, but a place where I don't totally know the language. Get me out of my comfort zone. That was the goal, to obviously get me out of my comfort zone, but not in the sense where it triggers my fight or flight too fast. So I wanted to kind of do like a baby step solo trip, obviously, because it was the first one. So I was looking into perhaps France, perhaps Portugal. I was really looking into the TAP Airlines stopover program. Let's just say you're going to Paris and you get to pick either your way there or your way back to have this long layover, which basically means you're just staying in another place, essentially, you know, for free. So you get 2 flights for the price of one-ish. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll do this program and I'll go to Porto or Lisbon and then I'll go to Paris, and like it's, you know, 2 in 1, just like travel maxing. And then I had to stop myself. I said, girl, this is your first solo trip. Like, take it easy and try to figure out like if you can actually do this. Like, do you have the bandwidth? Do you have the spiritual width? You know, this is a lot for a first experience. Well, I was like, okay, let me look at my Google Maps. Let's see, like, what are the places that I'm saving? My like philosophy on social media is when I get a travel recommendation, I will immediately save it to my Google Maps for situations like this. So I go to my Google Maps. I'm like, okay, I have some things in Lisbon, and obviously, you know, I'd love to go to Portugal, but I have a lot of things in Paris. That's crazy. And I thought to myself, okay, like I was just in the Canary Islands, that is part of Iberia, you know, on the Iberia Peninsula-ish. So maybe I should do Paris and just really like get out of the Iberian of it all. And that's exactly what I did. I looked at flights in like mid-February and prices were pretty great. I think I paid 800 or I ended up paying 500 because I have a travel credit card. Shout out Capital One. And I had decided that I wanted to get a check bag because I wanted to buy things in Paris, obviously, that were more than 100 milliliters. And maybe bring a little bit of extra clothes, things like that. So I thought I had paid, I think it was around like 500 with all of that. And that includes meals and such. I booked a budget airline called French Bee. A French budget airline, so a little bit different than your Spirits per se. Around mid-March, I got a message that French Bee canceled all of their Tuesday flight paths. So my original itinerary was May 21st to May 26th, which was a Tuesday, but now there are no more planes coming to Newark from Paris with this airline, so I was like, okay, this is annoying, but I guess I'll get it fully refunded, and they did fully refund me. But I don't know why I didn't think about this at the time, but I could have rebooked for just like the next day right then and there, and it probably would have been cheaper, but I, for some reason, thought that, no, like I need to stay this exact amount of time, so I can only use 2 days of PTO, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, then I finally woke up and was like, what the hell is wrong with one extra day in Paris? Hello? So that's exactly what I did, and I rebooked on French Bee to come back on the 27th. So the 21st to the 27th was my trip, my official trip, and I believe that's 5 nights and 6 days. 5 nights at Freddy's? 5 nights at French Bees, okay? So I was a little bit weary because it's a budget airline, but obviously, you know, I've seen videos of Spirit, and I've understood the consequences of a budget airline, but whatever. I was like, I need to get to Paris. I will do whatever I need to do. If that means kind of being squeezed in a seat, sure. But I had paid for aisle seats, so at that point, I was like, okay, it can't be that bad. Like, at least I'll be able to get up and go to the bathroom. The worst flight experience I had was actually going to the Canary Islands. So it was riding Air Europa. I could not recommend it less. The stewardesses, the stewards, they were amazing. My brother actually fainted on the first flight. Actually, it was Christmas Eve. So we were in a rush getting to the airport, getting to JFK, and didn't have time to eat, didn't have time to like get water to like be prepared. It was just like high cortisol for 5 hours until we got to the airport. And then at that point we had to get on that flight, and then there was a layover. It was a mess. But anyways, Air Europa, like the cabin itself, I think like there was a problem, I swear to God, with the oxygen, because I felt sick at one point, my mom felt sick at one point. No, it's not a genetics thing because other people threw up on the plane, like into the aisle. So I think there was definitely something wrong there. And once we got into Tenerife, like into the Canary Islands, someone fainted on the shuttle, someone like pissed themselves and threw up on the shuttle. It was insane. So I blame Air Europa for those troubles. So anything would be better than that. So that is what I'm going into this flight with. French Bee honestly blew me away. The actual plane was bigger than the one that we took from JFK to Madrid. So I'm like, why? Blame Air Europa. But so I was pretty comfortable just like sitting there. Obviously, like it's so hard for me to sleep on planes. So I was like, whatever. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. The girl that I sat next to was a super nice Parisian girl. She lives in New York now. Her boyfriend is from the town in Jersey where my father works. So I was like, oh, what a beautiful start to the solo trip. I left the Thursday night before Memorial Day weekend. So the flight was pretty full. But again, you know, like honestly, I don't remember any like crying babies, which is pretty huge. Like it was a really chill ride, and I don't think I had any complaints. Like the food was pretty good. I had enough water. I prepared because of the flight from hell from Air Europa. So anyways, but we land. At this point, I think it had been a couple weeks since Europe had announced or like put into action their new EES system, which is the entry-exit system. So basically they take biometric data of you once you come into the country. And that added like some delays for me. Honestly, that was probably like the longest time that I had to wait after getting out of, a plane and getting into a country. But obviously I know the system is new, so whatever. I forgot to mention that I landed into Orly instead of CDG. I got the understanding very quickly on Reddit that, and the rest of the internet, that Orly was easier to fly into in terms of just like figuring out and getting into the city. I think it's closer to the city. Maybe not by much, but it's definitely closer and a bit smaller than CDG. So again, easier to navigate. And I was like, okay, perfect. This is exactly what I need for my solo trip. Nothing crazy, just something super simple. Get through the EES. I'm in Paris officially. I just like follow the signage to get to the metro. There's a direct line. I think it's the M14 or the 14 line. That would get me to where my hotel is. So I took that. The signage was a little weird. I can't remember in Spain or Italy, but I remember obviously for Paris that if there's an arrow pointing down in signage, that means to keep going straight. So I must have interpreted it as go down, like to the next floor, go under, to the like basement, I guess. And then I did not find the metro, but don't worry, I figured it out. And there wasn't that many people. Honestly, like I do recommend Orly. I've heard really bad stories about CDG and like losing luggage, and that I had to shop, so why would I ever risk losing my shoppage? Yeah, that worked out. I get on the train and I'm on my way. But in terms of where I stayed, I did some research and I quickly realized that in most cities, like of course there's a central place, but in terms of lodging in that city, I feel like you can't truly be central if you do want to do good exploring in the city. Like if you're running around, like everything is going to be central. You know what I mean? Like everything's going to be at least like 15 minutes away on public transportation. I found this super cute boutique hotel called La Hotel. It's very close to Saint-Lazare, the big train station in Paris. Like a 5-minute walk. And then it was also very close to Montmartre and the Sacré-Cœur, which was probably like a little under a 20-minute walk, counting the giant hill you have to climb, the stairs that you have to climb. So I thought it was a pretty good place, accessible to everything by public transportation, like you sold me. But I knew that I wanted to stay in a hotel for my first solo trip, as much as I've had good experiences in hostels. But I'm like, okay, if I'm by myself, like, and I'm going into like an Airbnb, like, why would I do that? Because then I have to like make my own bed and use my dirty towel. It's like I'm in my own apartment. Like, why would I do that? And I feel like when you're with a group, it's a little bit easier and like it takes away that mental load. But by yourself, it's like, I want to be pampered. Like I want, the towels to be folded up when I get back from the day. And I want my garbage to be taken out type of thing. And even though, sure, those are small things, but it just makes it feel more luxurious. And so I decided to stay in hotels. But yeah, so I found the Lala Hotel, and I knew that I wanted to stay there because super, super cute. Just like really cute decoration and just like design in like a very quaint area. The staff was super, super nice. And I think they had recently done renovations maybe a year ago. So everything is like new. And I really enjoyed being in that space. I thought it was very French. And, obviously it wasn't the Ritz-Carlton with like a 800 square foot room. I think that's big. I don't really understand square footage. But yes, so it was perfect for me and what I wanted to experience in Paris. Because of the flight change, I decided to stay in another area for my last night in Paris. And the hotel that I ended up choosing was called the Kyriad Paris 13, Italia Gobelins, close to Place d'Italia. But I believe Kyriad is a chain of hotels, more so like a, I don't know, Best Western. Maybe even better than that, I don't know. But the room itself was a little bit under $100. I think it was more expensive on their scale because of the flight change. But the Lala Hotel was also €100. Both I think were worth that price, honestly. Like when I put the videos up, you'll see like it was just like super clean, super well organized, and just like in good places, and it was just so French, and that's exactly what I'm paying for. I would like to feel like a local for a second. I really like the Kyriad. It was so funny. The day that I got there, they were changing all the mattresses for the 5th and 6th floors. So I get there and I see like all these mattresses on the road, and I'm like, okay, so it's a scam, and this is a money laundering front, and now I have to sleep on the streets. But thankfully that was not the case, and they were just replacing all the mattresses to Tempur-Pedic mattresses for the 5th and 6th floors. So luckily I was on the 5th floor, I believe. So I got one of the new beds, and it was so huge. It was definitely bigger than the Lala Hotel's bed. I think the Lala Hotel's bed was a little bit bigger than a twin, but not a full. So whatever that is. But I really like the Kyriad because of the view. There was like a courtyard view from the window, so like I'm not looking at any roads or skylines, but it's just like the classic Parisian window view that I had wanted, that was on my dream board, and it was so beautiful. Both of the places were 3-star hotels, so I definitely think that's the perfect star, affordable but still a little nice, something that can make you feel like you're treating yourself but not breaking the bank. I never felt unsafe. I will say the Lala Hotel management or like staff had told me that there was a robbery a week before I had gotten there. Like they robbed the front desk, and I don't know, I was kind of like unfazed. Maybe that's the Gotham proximity in my life. They took like super extra precautions to make sure that all the guests felt safe. Like they locked the door after 11 p.m. So I get back from like this long day at like midnight or like 1, and I knock on the door and be like, hey, I need to go to sleep. And but anyway, so they were super safe, and really making sure that would not happen again. But I never felt unsafe. I was also on the 6th floor for that. So I definitely was like, okay, this is the penthouse. Like, you're not reaching me, babe, even if you do rob the front desk. Staying in 2 places, obviously, there's just pros and cons. And while, like, the night before I had to move to the next location, I definitely regretted it because I was like, okay, now I have to move this big suitcase and all my stuff in the Parisian heat wave to the next hotel, and I could have just stayed here and all that stuff. But I'm honestly happy I did it, because then I would have never been able to experience the Parisian window. But it was still fun, just like to go to a different area. And I think that I think I would do it again. It's just something exciting, and it gave me access to different parts of the city that I didn't have before. Not that I could not have gone there, obviously I could have gone to these areas, but you know what I mean, it's just like a different point of view. It just added like a new layer. If you can stomach it, I recommend it, because you get to experience that. For my last big trip, which was last summer, I went to Japan and Korea with 4 of my good friends. I planned like a freakazoid because I thought to myself, okay, we're going halfway across the world. We are not going to have time or the luxury to waste time to figure out what restaurants we want to go to figure out where we're staying or what we want to do, etc. We need to be able to just go and follow a plan. So that is what I did, and it was amazing. I did an hour by hour itinerary, which is definitely helpful, I feel like, with group planning. Solo trip, I did the opposite, and I waited until the very last minute to like truly plan. I think the only thing I had saved in advance was my Louvre ticket. And warning about the Louvre, or like buying museum tickets, but especially the Louvre, is that you need to make sure you're booking your ticket on the right website, on the official Louvre website, because I did not. And even though, yes, I still got in and it was an official ticket, I paid like 20 euros extra, like perfect. But that was the only tourist trap I fell for. I did get charged $6 water one time, but I corrected myself at that dinner. So anyways, so about a week before the trip, I finally sat down and I separated all of my Google Maps saved into restaurants, bakeries, cafes, bars, shopping places, museums, and parks. And then I organized them by arrondissements to see where like the bulk of my save spots were, the hot spots. Like, where did I really need to hit? I was indeed not making an hour by hour itinerary, but obviously still putting intention into my trip But I think people who travel will agree the best part of traveling is stumbling across places that you obviously didn't plan for. So it's all about balance and letting, leaving space for the magic, the travel magic to happen, the Anthony Bourdetting to happen. That is what I try to do, and that is honestly what happened. So before I go into my day-to-day itinerary, I do want to talk about solo travel logistics. So obviously, solo traveling means you abide by nothing but yourself and what you want, or maybe the government, the local government, and the culture. Really, at the end of the day, it's up to you. And I learned that in theory, I aim for a chill itinerary, but in practice, I travel max, and I'm just running around the city, and I kind of ignore bodily functions so I can see more things. But I was like, do everything maxing. But my deal breaker, and honestly, for most of my traveling, I have to take a midday nap. Like, there's just no day that I did not go. And I honestly think that most of the days that we were in Japan and Korea, we also did this. Like, we would have this time set in the day for one would come back and take a beat. Because taking a beat is so important. It allows you to split the day to essentially be out more. Like, you get more out of the day, but you're still getting some rest in besides, your nightly rest. And it ended up working out perfectly for me, being in Europe and being in Paris, this slow-ish pace place. And since dinner was at like 8 or 10, I would come back around 4 or 5, take like a 1.5 to 2 hour beat / nap, and be able to go out to dinner, and it wasn't anything crazy, like everything was still open and everything was still safe and beautiful, etc., etc. There were definitely points where I pushed myself too far, like when I just so happened to climb Notre Dame, 438 steps. After walking through inside, the regular chapel part, I had just finished my water and I kind of had to go to the bathroom. Obviously, there are no bathrooms at the top of Notre Dame / on the way there, so that was a bit of a push, but it was one of my favorite experiences of the whole trip, so it was worth it. Which to that, the only antidote to those kinds of like pushing and, maxing out your energy is something so simple as a European McDonald's moment where you're just nonverbal and trying, more regulated chicken nuggets, more of that. And not as big as a Diet Coke, the sizes are smaller there, as we have been shouted at by the Europeans, but it hit the spot. So things like that, it's like how you need to know how to bring yourself to a level where you're like, okay, now I can get back out there. I just need this like 30 minutes and then I can get back out. Or I need, a huge French Diet Coke and I'll be okay. So those are the kind of things that you need to learn or / do learn on the way. But in terms of socializing, I did have one friend who was in Paris, but obviously I wasn't just visiting for him, but shout out Arthur. So I had a mini safety net. It wasn't let's see each other every day and let's do things every day. It was just dinner one night. If anything happened, he would be close by or his family would be close by, and that made me feel better, and that made my family feel better. But yeah, so I talked to a million strangers, American, French, Parisian, literally anyone and everyone. Everyone was super, super, super nice. I'm extroverted, but it did take a little bit of an extra push that I didn't know that I could have to talk to people and be extroverted in a place that I've never been before, that speaks a language I don't speak. And being on a trip by myself, it's like, wow, this is a lot. But thankfully, I'm happy to report that I did do it. And every single person that I interacted with, especially the Parisians, were so, so nice. So gentil. It was amazing. And I'm so grateful for those interactions. But my little trick, you're thinking, I'm on a solo trip. Who the hell's going to take my pictures? I did indeed buy a tripod, but I never took it out. I just didn't have the space or the energy, but it ended up working out because I got some good shots of the hotel and me getting ready. So at least, at the very least, we used it for that. But my tips for getting pictures is to open your ears and hear if anyone's speaking English around you. And bonus points if they're a family and they're trying to take a selfie of all of them together. That's when you swoop in and you're like, oh, like, you want me to take a picture of all you guys together? And then you do that, everyone's happy, and they get a picture, of their memories forever and their family scrapbook and history.
And that's when you're like, oh, do you mind taking a picture of me? Like, I'm here by myself. And obviously they always say yes. So that was my key trick. It was literally foolproof. Nobody said no. And if you don't, hear any English, look for nice aura families, preferably with teenage daughters who you can tell have a visco or don't play about their Instagram. They will always say yes. It's just all about the way you approach, body language, and just vibe and tone. That's universal. But that kind of leads into my next thing, which is safety. Obviously, I am a young woman who's traveling by herself. Yes, I have, I can understand some French. I can read some French. Knowing Spanish and Italian, that can only go so far. I made sure to kind of have this really peacocky confidence when I was just walking around Paris and kind of giving off that vibe like, oh, I live here, I know where I'm going, I'm not constantly looking at my phone and walking super slow and looking up and down, looking confused. I never did that. My Gotham proximity, New York, figuring out New York and working in New York, I followed those rules there too. So I just applied them here in a Parisian context. But I do want to stress that can only go so far, It can protect you to a very high degree. There are some things that obviously we cannot control, being violent actions against us. But I was like, okay, I'm just gonna act like I live here and pray that the Mona Lisa protects me in these trying times. Pray that Beyonce's love for Paris protects me if I am attacked in Paris. So that was my mindset on this solo trip. When you're interacting with strangers, possibly flirting strangers, never, ever, ever say that you're here by yourself on a solo trip, what have you, unless you really trust these people. My tip is to just lie or confuse them, or always say you're visiting friends, or your friends are just in the bathroom. You can confuse them. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do or say anything you don't want to say. I love traveling, especially by myself, because who's gonna stop me or keep me in check? Nobody. So you can lie and say that you work for the museum. I don't know. Confidence is key when you're traveling by yourself, and just the way that you hold your body language, and you need to believe that you live here, you have the local knowledge to understand where you're going. Because if people are okay, this attacker's oh, this girl knows where she's going, she probably lives here, I might get in trouble, she knows what she's doing, you need to be on it. But that's in any city, so if you got that done, then there's no problem. Also, wearing wired headphones, I think, made me look more like a local. I had some local swagger. And I also just love listening to the Paris ASMR. I didn't want to wear my noise canceling headphones or anything because I wanted to be a part of it. New York, Paris, France. And but yeah, I think people thought that I lived here because it's wired headphones, you're so casual, you're just hopping around, you're going to work or something, or you're you're not a tourist, or so I think. Or so that's what I tell myself. But I genuinely do believe that there is a factor where people are okay, if you're listening to music and you're on public transportation and you're wearing wired headphones while you do that, you got a local vibe. And I would feel the same way if I looked at someone on, the subway doing that. But that's a mini trick. Now for my favorite part of the video, which is going through my day-to-day itinerary. Here we go.